Welcome to the Employer Content Show, part of the Talent Insights series brought to you by HireWell and CareerWell. I'm your host, James Hornick. Joining me is my co-host from Job Portraits, employer brand renaissance man, Nate Guggia.
I like that one. That's the best one. Yeah.
Kind of rhymed, anyways. Today's segment, recruiting tech is not solving real problems.
All right.
That's the lead. So there was we started brainstorming for this one because I think we both have different things that kind of annoyed us about technology and recruiting tech. And I think we have a lot of different groundwork to lay out here. Let's first start real basics. Everyone knows what we're talking about. There's a lot of different types of recruiting tech. And I want you to kind of jump in here with things maybe that you're kind of referring to. So just groundwork here. You got resume search platforms, things like LinkedIn, Indeed, Monster, whatnot. Then you've also got job boards, which is, in places to post jobs like Indeed, LinkedIn, built-in. You got communications platforms, glorified sales automation tools and stuff like that. So like there's different SMS outreach platforms, email outreach platforms, chatbot systems, things like that. You got your entire ATS system ecosystem, JobVite, Bullhorn, Greenhouse. There's like a million of those. Both for third-party companies and for internal companies. There's marketplaces, which is, I guess you could kind of say any social media companies kind of like this, but places like Bounty Jobs and Scout, which by the way are the worst. I don't even want to. I hate mentioning them, but I'm just going to say yes, if you work for those companies, please just unfollow me. You have a bad product. And assessments, you can throw those in there. The CCAT, the Wonderlic, like all these different types of things. But you had some other things you were kind of talking about with recruitment tech.
Yeah. I mean, but also too, like review sites.
Okay.
I think could be grouped in here. Even I would even go as far as like G2. If you're recruiting salespeople, that's a great place to go and just see how users are viewing your product and that kind of a thing. And obviously Glassdoor, employee advocacy tools that help employees distribute content out, is another one. And then also too, especially in the employer branding space, this whole idea, which I've talked a lot about of employee generated content, any kind of like tools or technology that enables employees to record themselves and create their own content to share out to. I'd group into all of this.
Got it. Okay. So story time. I think I put this in the kind of the intro copy and whatnot. Like 20 years ago, or 25 years ago now at this point, when like Monster and Career Builder came on the scene, the prevailing thought was this is going to end the recruiting industry. Like don't be any recruiters anymore. People are just going to post their jobs. We're going to apply to them. That's going to be it.
Yeah.
And it didn't take long for that to be like, yeah, that's a dumb idea. It clearly didn't happen. And with every like incremental piece of technology that comes out that like promises to be some sort of transcendent thing is going to completely change the game. It's just another widget that recruiters use to do their daily job. And the recruiting industry hasn't fundamentally changed because of any of this stuff. Whether it's databases or new job boards or new sourcing tools, any of this kind of things. And I think there's, and to kind of jump in on this, what I think a lot of people don't understand is a lot of people don't understand what technology actually is supposed to do and how it works. Like I want to give, there's a great book I read recently, Range, I suggest you check it out. So how,
I've heard of it.
Yeah. How generalists dominate in a specialized world, or as I think of the name of the book. They did a great overview, a great layman's overview of why AI, machine learning and just technology in general is often misunderstood, because like computers and technology is exceptionally good at execution, at doing repetitive tasks, at automating things, at doing incredibly tricky things in ways you would never be able to do on your own as a human as efficiently as you'd think. But they absolutely suck at doing anything creative. They suck at doing anything that's high level planning, it's high level strategy. Like computers just can't do that stuff. And, all these other things, all these things we're creating, people are getting excited about. It's just, yes, it's more and more and more efficient, more tactical, but it doesn't actually solve the problem of like, how do you actually create in the case of what we're talking about here, how do you create a recruiting or hiring strategy? How do you communicate with people in ways they want to be communicated with? Because of all this stuff that's done, it's humans are far too complex. Like we are not simple beings. Like you might be able to run some predictive analytics that's going to figure out what a population of people are going to do, but you can't, like, it's not Minority Report where you can figure out what one person is going to do, right? It's just the technology's not there. And that's kind of the other challenge we have with a lot of the stuff is that people think that tech is plug and play. Like, I'm going to buy this solution, it's going to do all this for me. But really, it's just another tool that you need to do to execute whatever your plan was. And if your plan still sucks, and if your communication still sucks, and your process still sucks, it's not going to fix any of that. Mm-hmm. Which is kind of how I want to lay the groundwork of what all the other things we kind of want to talk about. So
okay. I'll jump in with technology as it applies to my industry, specifically employer branding, content creation. Right? I think that's the most important part of any of this, and the piece that's missing for most companies. And so when I look at technology that exists in this space, it's really around the sharing aspect of it. It's around like the distribution. But the real problem is that most employer brand leaders and teams, they have a creative problem. They're maxed out on time, resources, and maybe even the creative skills to take information and turn it into compelling content that can then be shared out. And so you could have like the greatest employee advocacy tool or the greatest app that allows employees to video themselves and share it across social. But if you don't have the content to share, then it's just a tool. It's just sitting there. It doesn't do anything. And so I think like in my space, the biggest problem is there's a lack of process, and technology can't solve that problem. Mm-hmm. And everything happens when the process is there.
Technology can execute the process, which I think a lot of people think like, oh, we got this solution that's going to help us with this, but it can't create the process.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so like when I think about process, I think about things like you even posted about this today, about interviewing the right people internally to get the right information. And then having the skill set to take that information and turn it into content. And then I even think about on the recruiting side, copywriting.
Yeah.
I mean, the distribution channels already exist. We use them on a daily basis. Social media, email, text, whatever, But I just always come back to like, it's this creative issue.
So I'm glad you kind of dovetailed over there, because I was going to say it's the same thing on the recruiting side versus on the high level kind of messaging, employer brand for the company side, is that it's already easy. It's so easy if you're talking about finding people, like I need to find 1,000 people to contact for some role. It's so easy already, right?
Yeah.
20 years ago, it wasn't like that. 20 years ago, it was pretty hard. So a lot of this technology, when it was first new and came out, but like the next generation message board or the next generation social platform or some communication tool that whatever, like it's so incremental in terms of what it actually does for you that it's almost irrelevant. Like you don't like but the challenge in recruiting is like getting someone interested in coming to your company. It's that messaging aspect. It's that storytelling aspect of how do you better articulate as a recruiter what it is about your company that should get people excited? How do you take like the vision? How do you do all these? And this is not something technology can solve. It's something that people have to be able to do on their own. It's something that it requires a genuine human understanding of what someone would be interested in, genuine understanding of your business, and how to match those two things up. And I almost think that this, like the technology obsession, does a detriment because people think they're solving a problem every time they buy something, when really they're not addressing what the real problem is, which if you're having a hard time hiring, you're not able to articulate your value to job seekers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another thing I keep coming back to when it comes to technology is that technology isn't built to actually help the candidate in our case. That the candidate's our end user, we'll say. Yeah. I don't think technology is built to actually help them. It's built as a way to help companies do things better, faster, smarter. And so because companies are the clients of tech companies, everything gets created so those companies can keep paying them money. And I think like over time, something like might initially have the intention of being something for candidates. But as companies continue to pay more and more and more money to these platforms to be promoted, to have visibility, to have access to more tools, everything just gets funneled back to the company. And so I step back and I think about like, who's the candidate advocates now? Like, you know, who's caring really about what the candidate wants and is continually pushing companies to give candidates the thing that they know they want. And I just don't really see that happening.
Yeah. I could also, like, one other angle, because I touched on this a bit too, is like assessments, because that's the thing that I've noticed. I ran on assessments for a while where assessments can tell you if somebody fits a certain profile, but they can't tell you what profile you should be trying to hire. And I think that's the biggest problem, is that companies who use assessments oftentimes use them as a crutch, and they can't make a decision without it. And, you know, let's say they identify what they thought was a successful profile for what a person should look like, or, you know, by whatever standards they decided. It worked out well for this first couple hires. Then they apply that to everybody else without realizing, did we just get lucky? Was there necessarily a correlation to those first ones? Do we want different profiles for different positions? Like these companies that like have these profiles, like they don't know your organization. They don't know what you should be doing or who you should be hiring. And, you know, that's the issue I have with them, is that, like I said, it becomes a crutch where there's not enough thought put into like what you should be hiring against, or even if it's even that, you know, even not necessary. I don't know. So,
yeah. I have some advice, I guess.
Yeah.
All right.
Go for it.
It's easy. It's easy to have an idea and then go straight to tools, and start implementing a bunch of tools without having that, like I said before, without having that process in place. I think it's so important to just go all the way back to like have your process really dialed in, and then see what is the minimum number of tools that you need to implement to bring that process to life. It's just, it will simplify everything. But if that process isn't there, you're just spending money on technology that isn't helping you. And when I talk to EB leaders, I just like, we talk about process. It always comes back down to that. It's just like, what is the creative process so we can like create and turn stuff out and enable our employees to be better storytellers? It's just like that conversation over and over again. And like, I just can't, I don't know. I can't highlight it enough. It's like that important. And I think like even on the recruiter side, like we talk so much about the value of like being a really good writer. And like, I think like teaching those kinds of skills is just so much more important.
Yeah. I would say, and maybe just kind of like put the punctuation on this, like, because we wanted to talk about why it's not solving real problems. Here are the real problems in recruiting.
Yeah.
Storytelling and clear articulation of value and vision by people, by recruiters, hiring managers, executives, by the company, whether it's the marketing or the employer branding. That's problem one. Technology does not address that. Right. Second biggest problem is the human experience, the candidate experience. So having a streamlined process, having a thoughtful, insightful interaction with candidates, making sure they actually feel good about where they are in this process with your company, and they believe in what you're doing. Another thing that can't be addressed with technology. So I would say that, and I guess it like, again, like not to harp on it, it blows my mind because every year there's like some other acquisition happening, some new thing coming out. There's VCs pouring tons of money in these types of stuff. But I look at it from the standpoint of, if you're a company, you're struggling to hire, those are the two things you need to focus on. And those are things that you have to do, that you're not going to be able to buy something off the shelf that's going to do it for you.
Yeah. I was going to add something, but that was good.
I'm trying to think. I had some thoughts here, and the only other one I had is like a lot of, and this is maybe a smaller scale thing, but I've seen over the years, a lot of times there's, you know, a way and this is maybe a sales thing, right? Where you justify buying the latest sourcing tech because you were able to make, or the job board ads or something, that because like here was our spend. Here was the amount of people we found from it that we placed. So, this exceeds this. So it makes sense to buy it. But you're never taking into account, maybe you would have found the same people anyway. Maybe you would have found someone else to fill those roles anyway. Like, it's not even, I don't think that's good accounting, but I don't know.
I want to add one more thing. Some of the platforms that we've mentioned, they don't offer the best experience, and some of them offer a really poor experience. And I think companies might feel handcuffed by those platforms for whatever reason, even though they will admit, like, we're not getting the best results and they're probably paying way too much money, but everybody else is doing it, so we need to do it. And I think that's a big disconnect between the experience that your candidate is getting and the platforms that you're willing to invest money in. And if you know that there's that disconnect, I think it's time for some companies to, like, go rogue in a way and say, like, all right, like, just because everybody else is doing it doesn't mean we have to. It's not producing the results we need for our organization. We know what kind of experience candidates want, and we know the kind of experience that we want to create. So let's create that. And let's offer that on our own, because, like you said earlier, it's not hard to find people anymore. And because it's not hard to find people anymore, you don't have to rely on platforms that aren't producing the results that you want. And so create the experience, and then figure out the best way to distribute and connect.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Okay.
All right.
Man.
Anything else? I think I'm out.
I think I'm out too.
All right. All right, everybody. Thanks for, we'll wrap it up then. So that's a wrap for the Employer Content Show. If you want to hear more of what Nate and I have to say, you can subscribe to the Hire Well channel on YouTube, where we have a playlist of all of our episodes, and the Talent Insights podcast, which is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon, and Spotify. Nate, pleasure as always.
Good to see you, man.
Out there. See you soon.